If I tell you this, maybe you'll never look at me the same way again. But I need to get it out. Maybe if someone out there hears my story, they won't feel as alone as I did when my world crumbled in the middle of my father's funeral. I always thought betrayal would come with warning signs, a lipstick on the collar, a suspicious text, a strange perfume scent lingering on his shirt. But no, sometimes betrayal wears a face you've loved your whole life. A voice that called you sis since you were babies, sharing bunk beds. And sometimes, you only see the knife in your back when you're already standing at the edge of the grave, both literally and figuratively. I'd been numb that day, barely able to process my father's death. He was my anchor, the only man I trusted blindly after Mom left us. My husband, Carl, was there, holding my hand, whispering he'd be my rock now. And my sister, Megan, sweet, fragile Megan, she cried on his shoulder as if she'd lost more than just a father. That day it was the way she looked at him, the way he squeezed her waist when he thought no one was watching, but I was. I wish I hadn't. When the final hymn played and people stepped out to the reception hall, I stayed behind. I needed to be alone with Dad one last time. That's when I heard them, behind the old oak door of the church office. Whispers turned to moans, my sister's giggle, my husband's voice saying things he'd once said only to me, and I stood there, frozen. My father lying cold in the casket just steps away. I'm telling you this because what happened next changed me forever. I didn't just lose my father that day. I buried a piece of myself with him, but I promise you, I didn't let them win. No, I made sure the whole town knew exactly who they were. Where are you watching me from? Hit subscribe. Like this, it helps me more than you know. Because what I'm about to share, it's the kind of story that makes you question how far you'd go for your own justice. I remember that morning so vividly it feels like a fever dream. The sky was the kind of gray that clings to your bones, heavy with the promise of rain that never really comes, just a mist that makes everything feel colder than it should. I woke up alone in bed, Carl already gone. He said he needed to help the funeral home guys set things up, but I'd later realize he just needed an excuse to slip away, probably to her. I looked in the mirror as I pinned my black hat and veil, trying to swallow down the lump in my throat. I'd never seen myself look so much like my mother, tired eyes, hollow cheeks, that same sadness that used to cling to her like a second skin after she caught Dad cheating years ago. Funny, isn't it? How history loops back around when you least expect. Megan showed up at my door before the service. She wore my old black coat, the one Mom bought me for my first big city job interview. You look so pale, sis, she said, her voice trembling, eyes wide with something I mistook for grief. She hugged me too tight, her perfume too sweet. I told myself we'd get through this together. We'd stand by each other now that Dad was gone. At the church, people avoided my eyes. Small town folks like to pretend they care, but they really just love to watch your life unravel from the safety of a pew. Carl stood by my side, gripping my hand until my knuckles turned white. Megan sat behind us, but every time I glanced back, she was staring at him, not at Dad's casket. I told myself I was imagining it. Grief makes you see ghosts where there are none. But then there were the whispers. My cousin Dana leaned in to hug me and mumbled, I'm so sorry for everything, honey. Everything. What did she mean? I tried to ask, but she slipped away, eyes down, as if she'd said too much already. The pastor's voice droned on, and I felt like I was underwater. My mind drifted to the nights Carl came home late from work, how Megan had been spending more time at our place, saying she was worried about me after Dad fell sick, how Carl would offer to drive her home when she'd had too much wine, and how sometimes he'd come back smelling faintly of her shampoo. But even then, I pushed it away. I needed to believe my family, as broken as it was, hadn't betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. So I stood there, gripping Carl's hand, my father's coffin in front of me, my sister's eyes on my husband, and my world already rotting from the inside out. As the service ended, Megan pulled me aside, her face streaked with tears. Come outside with me, she whispered. There's something I need to tell you before they bury him. Her voice trembled. For a second, I thought maybe she was going to confess, maybe she'd tell me the truth right there, under that gray, weeping sky. But what she said instead made my blood run colder than the November wind. She looked me straight in the eye and said, I don't think you know who Carl really is. And just like that, the coffin wasn't the only thing being lowered into the ground that day. My mind was buzzing so loud I could barely hear the sound of dirt hitting my father's coffin. Megan's words clung to me like a burr under my skin. I don't think you know who Carl really is. But she didn't say more. She just walked away, leaving me there with a hole in my chest that felt deeper than the grave we were standing over, at the reception hall next door. People pretended to care. Neighbors dropped off casseroles no one would eat, whispered blessings they didn't mean. I moved through them like a ghost, clutching my paper plate so tight it bent in half. Every time I glanced at Carl, he was looking for Megan, and when he found her across the room, their eyes locked just a second too long. Her hand brushed his when he passed her a drink. She giggled at something he said. I watched the way her cheeks flushed pink. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe grief makes people cling to each other. Maybe my mind was poisoned by Dad's old scenes, seeing betrayal everywhere. I forced myself to stand tall, to greet the guests. This is just your imagination, I told myself. He's your husband. She's your sister. They'd never, But when I caught them slipping out the side door together, something snapped. I waited a minute before I followed. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd find them smoking a cigarette or just crying in the garden. Instead, I found them in the old church office behind the reception hall. The door was cracked open just enough for me to see Megan pressed up against the wall. Carl's hands under her blouse. Her laugh was breathless, the same laugh she used to have when we were kids, sneaking cookies from the jar, but now it was poison. We have to stop, she whispered, giggling. Someone will see. Carl leaned in, his voice low. Let them. Maybe then she finally let go. That was me. Let go of what? My marriage, my dignity. The life I'd built around a lie. I wanted to burst in there, to scream, to rip them both apart. But my feet wouldn't move. My father was still warm in the ground, and my heart was already in pieces. So I just stood there, frozen, listening to my husband and my sister betray me while people inside drank cheap coffee and shared stories about what a good daughter I'd been. When they finally pulled apart, I stumbled back down the hall before they could see me. I locked myself in the tiny bathroom near the coat racks and threw up everything I hadn't eaten that day. My reflection looked like a ghost, pale, wide-eyed veil, askew. I didn't recognize myself. All I could think was, how long, how many times? A soft knock rattled the door. It was Carl. Babe, you in there? His voice was all gentle concern, the same one he used when he promised forever. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. Babe, you okay? He jiggled the knob. Come on, let's get you home. Home. The word tasted rotten. Home wasn't mine anymore. Home was where my sister's perfume clung to my pillow. Where my husband's hands didn't know the difference between my skin and hers. I knew right then that I couldn't confront them. Not yet. I needed to know everything first. I needed proof. And I needed a plan. Because burying my father that day was one thing. I refused to bury myself along with him. But nothing could have prepared me for what I'd find when I dug deeper into their lies, because their betrayal. That was only the beginning. That night, I lay in bed beside Carl, my body stiff as stone, while he slept like an innocent man. I could feel the warmth of him under the covers, the steady rise and fall of his chest. Just days ago, that sound would have calmed me. Now it felt like a lie echoing in the dark. His phone buzzed once on the nightstand. I watched his hand twitch, but he didn't wake. Part of me hesitated. I'd never been the type to snoop. Dad always said, if you go digging for dirt, you better be ready to find mud. But the way I saw it now, I was already covered head to toe. I reached for his phone, my fingers trembling so hard I nearly dropped it. The passcode was our anniversary. He'd made such a show of it the day we got matching phones. We trust each other. Babe. The screen unlocked with a soft click. I wished it hadn't. The first thing I saw was a message from Megan. I miss you already. She doesn't suspect anything, does she? My blood ran cold. There was a string of messages, weeks of them, photos, blurry snapshots in his truck, at motels off the highway. One of them in my kitchen with her perched on the counter like it was the most normal thing in the world. My wedding ring sat in a dish on that same counter. I read every word. Every I love you baby. Every when will she find out. Megan's replies were worse. She called him my love. Said things like, she was always daddy's favorite, now you're mine. I felt sick, but I kept scrolling. I needed it to hurt. I needed the pain to burn away any trace of forgiveness. Somewhere near the bottom, I found a video. My thumb hovered over it, my heart beating so loud I thought he'd wake. When I pressed play, it took a second for the image to steady. It was my sister, lying in my bed. My bed. She turned to the camera, laughing. Do you think she knows? She whispered. Carl's voice answered. She's too busy crying over her old man. She never know. I nearly dropped the phone. My body felt like it was floating above the sheets, looking down at this stranger, who shared my name, my house, my broken dreams. I slipped the phone back and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Carl stirred beside me, mumbled something about coffee, and kissed my forehead. I wanted to scream, to claw his face open and show him the monster he really was. But I didn't, not yet. Instead, I dressed like any grieving daughter would. I drove to the tiny diner on Main Street and ordered black coffee I didn't drink. And then I found her, Megan. She was sitting at a booth near the window, hair pulled up, eyes hidden behind big sunglasses like she was the one who'd been wronged. I slid into the booth across from her. She jumped, her mouth parting in surprise. What are you? I know, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was flat, heavy with the truth that couldn't be buried. Megan's lips quivered. It's not what you think. I laughed then. A sound so cold it made the people at the next booth glance over. Oh, it's exactly what I think, Megan, and you're going to tell me how long you've been sneaking around with my husband. Her fingers fumbled with her napkin, tearing it to shreds. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No. I leaned in, my voice a whisper of venom. Then tell me how it was supposed to happen, sis. Tell me what you and my loving husband had planned for me. But she didn't answer. She just looked at me with eyes so empty it made my skin crawl. And when she finally opened her mouth, the words that came out made my blood turn to ice. Carl promised me. He promised me you wouldn't get hurt. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. He promised me you wouldn't get hurt. Hurt? How exactly did she think I'd feel grateful? I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake the truth out of her, but I forced myself to stay still. The diner was quiet, except for the clink of mugs and the low hum of a country song on the radio. It felt obscene to be having this conversation in a place where people knew my father's name. Where they'd nod politely and say I'm so sorry for your loss without knowing what I'd really lost. I leaned across the sticky table. My voice so low, Megan had to lean in too. Hurt how? Megan, you slept with my husband. You betrayed me in the same house where we grew up, the same house where we buried Dad's dreams. How much worse could it get? She bit her lip, eyes darting to the window like she might bolt if she could. It's not that simple, okay, Carl. He told me things about you, about your marriage. I let out a hollow laugh. And you believed him? She stopped. Her eyes welled up. For a second, I almost saw the little sister who used to cling to my hand when Mom left us alone for hours. The one who crawled into my bed during thunderstorms. But that girl was dead. She'd died the moment she pressed her lips to my husband's neck. He said you were sick. Megan whispered, voice cracking. That you were losing it? That you didn't want him anymore. That you didn't want him anymore. That you I slammed my palm on the table so hard our coffee sloshed over the rim. A couple in the next booth looked over wide-eyed. I didn't care. And that made it okay. You took him to our bed because you thought I was sick. Are you that weak, Megan, or just that cruel? She flinched but didn't look away. He loves me. He told me he's leaving you. I almost laughed at that. I wanted to pull out my phone, shove the messages in her face. He loves you. He called you a distraction, said you were a mess he needed to clean up, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned back, wiping my hand on a napkin, as if I could scrub her filth off my skin. That's not all, is it? I asked, my voice calm now. Too calm. What did he promise you, Megan? Money, a place to live, some fairy tale ending. She shook her head so fast her hair slipped free from its clip. It's not like that. He said we'd go away together. Start fresh. You'd be taken care of, I repeated, the words tasting like poison. How, exactly? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I saw it then, the flicker of fear behind her eyes. Something she hadn't planned to say out loud. Something that made her whole body tense like a cornered animal. I leaned in again, so close I could smell the cheap diner coffee on her breath. What did you do, Megan? Her hand trembled as she reached for her purse. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, smoothing it flat between us. It was a receipt from a motel on the edge of town, dated the same night Dad fell down the stairs. My heart stopped. What is this? She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Carl said it was just bad luck. But now I think maybe it wasn't. My vision blurred. The smell of burnt coffee, fried eggs, the cheap vinyl of the booth, it all pressed down on me like I was drowning in it. My father didn't just fall. He didn't just die. You're telling me, I said, each word trembling, that Carl was with you the night Dad died. She nodded, tears spilling over now. I didn't know. I swear. He left. He said he had to go check on the old man. He was gone an hour. When he came back, he was different. A cold chill crept up my spine. I saw it all now, the way Carl hovered near Dad those last weeks. The way he pushed me to sign those hospice forms when Dad could have held on longer. The sudden life insurance policy that showed up, the one I'd never read in full. My sister wasn't just my husband's lover. She was his alibi, and my father's grave was still fresh in the ground. I don't remember driving home from the diner. I don't remember the traffic lights, the potholes on Main Street, the old gas station where Carl and I used to stop for late-night snacks when we were still pretending we were happy. All I remember is gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached, Megan's trembling voice still ringing in my head. He said he had to check on the old man. When I pulled into our gravel driveway, the house looked different, smaller, darker, like it was ashamed of what had happened inside its walls. I sat there for a long time, engine ticking, my breath fogging the window as I watched Carl through the kitchen curtain. He was standing at the sink, rinsing a plate, humming some stupid song. He looked like a man who had nothing to hide, who could hum while my father rotted underground, while my sister's perfume still clung to our sheets. I stepped inside and the warmth of the heater hit me like an insult. Carl turned, flashing that grin he used to save for strangers at church potlucks. Hey babe, you eat something. You look pale. I dropped my purse on the counter, my fingers brushing the edge of the butcher knife block. I felt its weight in my mind, heavy, dangerous. Not yet, I told myself. Not yet. I needed more than suspicion. I needed him to bury himself with his own words. I forced a smile, my voice sweet as syrup. I'm fine, just tired. It's been a lot. He came over, slipped his arm around my waist, pressed a kiss to my temple like he hadn't just destroyed me. I know, baby, we'll get through this together. I almost laughed. Together. What a joke. That night, I lay awake long after Carl's breathing turned heavy beside me. I replayed everything, Dad's sudden fall, the bruises on his arms that the hospice nurse said were normal for an old man, the way Carl insisted we bury him quick, the closed casket, the hush-hush whispers at the funeral home. You're crazy, I told myself. You're grasping at shadows. But deep down I knew the shadows were real, and they lived in my bed. I started digging the next morning. First the insurance papers. Carl had always handled the bills, the forms, the signatures. Don't worry your pretty head about all that, he'd say. And I'd let him, because trust was supposed to be the thing that held us together. Now, the fine print felt like broken glass in my hands. Dad's new life insurance policy, the one Carl pushed him to sign when his cough got worse, named me as the sole beneficiary. But the account number was one Carl had set up. And there, buried under lines of legal jargon, was a clause, in the event of accidental death, payout doubles. Accidental. A slip down the stairs. An old man alone, in the dark. I found old voicemails to my father's voice, raspy, but sharp as ever. You need to keep an eye on that man. He's too slick for his own good. Don't let him near my bank papers. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I wanted to believe it was all coincidence, but then I remembered how Carl stood at the top of those stairs, said he found Dad lying there already gone. No 911 call until 15 minutes later. He was gone when I got there. Baby. There was nothing I could do. Lies, all of it. And Megan. Sweet, dumb Megan. She'd been his excuse, his cover, and she'd let herself be used because she thought he'd love her more than he ever loved me. I knew I couldn't confront him alone, not yet. I needed someone to believe me. So I called the only person in town who might listen, Deputy Harris. He'd known Dad for years, used to come by the house to check on him when he was too sick to drive. He answered on the first ring, voice groggy like I'd woken him from an afternoon nap. Mrs. Jensen, everything okay? No, nothing was okay, I think. I think my father didn't just fall. I whispered. I think Carl had something to do with it. There was a pause, the sound of his chair creaking. You got proof of that? I looked at the mess of papers spread across the kitchen table, the receipts, the texts, Megan's tear-stained motel slip. Not enough, not yet, but I will. Harris let out a long sigh. I'll come by tonight. But if you're wrong about this, I wasn't wrong. I could feel it in my bones. The same bones that had carried me through a funeral while my sister giggled in my husband's arms. I'm not wrong, Deputy. I just need you to be ready when he slips. And slip he would, because I was done crying in the dark. I wanted Carl to see me watching him when he fell. Deputy Harris showed up just after dark, his cruiser headlights sweeping across our front yard like a spotlight on a stage I never wanted to stand on. I let him in through the back door so the neighbors wouldn't get curious. Small towns love a scandal more than they love their Sunday sermons. He took off his hat, eyes flicking to the scattered papers, the laptop glowing with Carl's emails still open on the table. You sure about this? He asked, his voice low but firm. Harris had been one of Dad's poker buddies. The kind who looked out for widows and orphans because it made him feel like the world still had some sense of right and wrong. I nodded. I'm sure, but I need him to say it himself. He sat across from me, the kitchen clock ticking so loud it felt like it was counting down to something terrible. You want a wire? The word made my stomach twist. What happens if he finds it? Harris shrugged, tired eyes softening. That's why. You gotta play it smart, honey. Get him talking. Get him comfortable. He thinks he's smarter than you. Use that. Use that. I stared down at my shaking hands, at the faint line of my wedding ring tan on my finger I'd taken off hours ago. I didn't feel smart. I felt like a woman clawing at the walls of her own grave, hoping the dirt wouldn't bury her before she found the truth. When Harris left, he gave my shoulder a squeeze. One word from you, and I'm here. He tries anything you scream loud enough to wake the whole damn street. Carl came home an hour later, carrying a cheap bottle of wine, and that smug grin that used to make me weak in the knees. Now it just made me sick. He poured me a glass, acting like we were newlyweds again. Like he hadn't gutted my world, piece by piece. To us, he said, raising his glass, to us. What did us even mean anymore? I forced a smile, swirling the wine but not tasting it. Where'd you run off to? He shrugged, leaned back in his chair, arms spread wide like he owned the whole room, and me with it. Took care of some paperwork at the bank. You know how it is. My stomach turned. Paperwork for what? He watched me with those wolfish eyes. Our future, babe. Now that your old man's gone, we've got a lot to figure out. I wanted to spit in his face. Instead, I leaned in closer, my voice sweet. Tell me something, Carl. Did you love him at all? Did you feel even a second of guilt when you saw him lying there? He stiffened, that predator glint flashing just for a moment before his smile snapped back in place. What kind of question is that? Of course I did. He was your father, but not yours, I whispered. Not really. He tilted his head, like he was studying an insect he might crush just for fun. Why are you acting so weird tonight? I swallowed, pushing the wire deeper into my bra strap where Harris had taped it. My skin itched under the adhesive. I just want to understand. You said you'd always protect me, right? From everything, even from Dad. His mouth twitched. He tapped his fingers on the table, a tell I'd learned to read years ago when he lied about overtime shifts. Your old man was a stubborn bastard. He was gonna leave you with nothing. You know that, right? A cold shiver crawled down my back. So you helped him along. He laughed, a sound that used to mean safety. Now it felt like a nail in my coffin. You're drunk. You don't know what you're saying. I leaned in so close I could see the sweat on his upper lip. Tell me what you did, Carl. His eyes narrowed. He grabbed my wrist so tight I felt the bones grind together. Careful, babe. You don't want to say things you can't take back. I forced myself not to flinch. Did you push him? He didn't answer. But the smile that slowly spread across his face told me everything I needed to know. He squeezed my wrist once more before letting go, his voice low and dangerous. Some things are better left buried. Just like your daddy. My stomach flipped, bile rising in my throat. But I held his gaze. And Megan. She's your prize for all this. His laugh turned cold. Megan's nothing. She's a stupid girl who believes what I tell her. You were always the strong one. But you've been slipping, haven't you? I could hear my heart pounding louder than his voice. He leaned back, tipping his wineglass, like we were just two lovers talking about the future. But behind his eyes, I saw it, the plan he thought he'd kept hidden. If you can kill once, you can kill again. Upstairs, the floorboards creaked. Harris was waiting in the hallway, listening. I prayed he heard every word because I knew then, Carl wouldn't let me walk away alive once he realized. I'd found him out, but I wasn't the only one who'd been playing pretend. And what came Next would prove just how far a betrayed woman could go when she's done burying everyone else's secrets. After that night, nothing about our house felt real anymore. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like footsteps snaking up behind me. Every shadow on the wall looked like Carl's silhouette waiting to finish what he started. Harris called me early the next morning. His voice was a mix of relief and something heavier, like he knew the truth was bigger than either of us could handle alone. "I got it all, sweetheart," every word that Snake said. "But it's not enough, not yet. He'll just spin it. Say you're grieving, confused. We need more. More. How much more did they want? My father was dead. My sister was crawling in my husband's bed, and me. I was playing house with a man who might kill me before the ink dried on the coroner's report. Harris promised he'd look into the life insurance. He'd talk to the hospice nurse again. See if anyone else noticed the bruises on Dad's arms. The bruises I'd blamed on clumsiness, old age, anything but murder. I thanked him, then sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where Carl had squeezed my wrist so hard it still ached. Megan texted me that afternoon. "Can we talk?" Just that, no apology, no explanation, like she hadn't just admitted to being part of Dad's death by turning a blind eye. I almost ignored her, but something in my gut twisted, telling me she had more to spill, or more to lose. And if there was one thing Carl had taught me, it was that you don't waste your enemy's weakness. I met her at the old playground behind the church, the same swings we used to fight over when we were kids. It was almost dark. The air smelled like damp leaves and something else, fear, maybe. She sat on the swing, hair pulled back in a messy bun, eyes ringed red like she hadn't slept since the funeral. She didn't look up when I approached. "I'm so sorry," she said, voice hoarse. "I swear to God, I didn't know what he was planning. He told me he loved me." I laughed an ugly, raw sound that bounced off the metal slide and came back at me. "Did he promise you the world, Megan? Did he tell you I'd be fine? That Daddy would go quick and we'd all move on? Was that what you wanted?" She flinched. "I didn't want him to die. But you wanted my husband." She buried her face in her hands. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." The wind picked up, rattling the chains of the swing. I crouched in front of her, my voice low. "Tell me the truth, Megan. Did he ever talk about getting rid of me too?" Her head snapped up. "No, I don't know. He'd say stuff sometimes, like you were in the way, that you were fragile, that if you ever found out, you'd ruin everything." I could almost see it now, the plan Carl kept buried under that charming grin. He'd kill my father for the money. He'd keep Megan as the sweet side piece, dumb enough to believe his lies, and me. I was the final loose end, the last witness to his perfect little scheme. I grabbed Megan's wrist, hard enough to make her gasp. "Listen to me. If you care at all, if there's any piece of you that still remembers who we were before him, you'll help me finish this." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "How?" I stood up, brushing the dirt from my jeans. "You're going to tell him you're scared. You're going to say I'm talking to the cops, that you want out. And when he panics, when he tries to shut you up, I'll be waiting." She looked at me like she wanted to run, but there was nowhere left for her to hide. Not from Carl, not from the truth, not from me. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, but I was already walking away, the wind carrying her voice behind me like a ghost. When I got home, Carl was waiting on the porch. He smiled, arms wide, like he could hug away every secret, every bruise, every betrayal. I let him pull me close, let him kiss my cheek. Because now I wasn't just the grieving daughter or the cheated wife. I was the hunter. And he had no idea the trap was already closing around his neck. The next 2 days crawled by like they were made of barbed wire. Carl moved through the house with that fake warmth turned up to 10, cooking me breakfast I couldn't eat, offering back rubs I didn't want, planting kisses on my forehead that made my skin crawl. Every touch was poison disguised as comfort, and every smile was just another way to remind me who he thought was in control. But he didn't see the storm building in the quiet. He didn't see Harris parked 2 blocks away every night, lights off, ready to pounce if things turned ugly. He didn't see Megan's calls to my burner phone, her voice trembling as she gave me pieces of Carl's plan I didn't even know to be afraid of. Late one night, she told me everything. How Carl had told her we'd sell the house, cash in Dad's policy, and disappear to somewhere warm. How he'd laughed when she asked what would happen to me. "Don't worry, baby. Accidents happen every day in this town." The way she said it, her voice cracked like a child. Maybe she really was that naive, or maybe she'd finally seen the monster for what he was. That night, I lay awake beside Carl again. I counted every breath he took, every snore that rattled out of his chest. I pictured my father at the bottom of those stairs, the hollow thud of his body hitting the landing, Carl's cold eyes watching it all happen, and I thought about what he'd planned for me, the last piece of his insurance payout puzzle. The next morning, Megan did exactly what I told her to do. She called Carl while he was out running errands, probably meeting with the sleazy lawyer who helped him forge the insurance forms. She told him she was done, that she couldn't lie for him anymore, that I was talking to the police, that she needed money to disappear or she'd tell everyone what he did. I was sitting at the kitchen table when he came back. He slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. He didn't even bother hiding the storm this time. His mask had cracked. "Where the hell have you been?" he barked. I looked up from my cold coffee, my voice calm. "I went to see Dad." He laughed, sharp and mean. "Your daddy's dead, or did you forget?" I didn't flinch. "I went to the sheriff's office too." His eyes narrowed, calculating. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet," I lied, "but Megan might." At the mention of her name, something behind his eyes flickered, that wild animal glint I'd seen the night he squeezed my wrist. He leaned across the table, his breath sour with coffee and cigarettes. "You think they'll believe you? You think some sad little widow and your drunk sister will bring me down?" I pushed my chair back, slow and deliberate, like I wasn't shaking inside. "I think you should leave, Carl, before you make this worse." He chuckled, that low, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "You always were the dramatic one, huh? Always needed a hero." I didn't answer. I just slipped my phone into my pocket. Harris was listening from his cruiser, every word feeding the case we were building like kindling to a fire. But Carl didn't know that. He just saw his scared little wife, finally cornered. He stepped around the table, blocking my path. "You're not going anywhere. You think you can run to Harris? To your sister? You think you're smarter than me?" I felt my pulse in my throat, my ears. I saw my father's face in that last photo I'd taken, tired, fragile, but still proud. I wondered if he'd known, if he'd seen the danger and tried to warn me before it was too late. "I know I'm smarter than you," I said, my voice steady now. "Because I waited, and you never saw me coming." He lunged, hands on my throat, squeezing, the world tilting as I stumbled back into the counter. I clawed at his arms, the wire under my shirt digging into my ribs. His spit hit my cheek when he snarled, "I should have done this sooner. Should have buried you with your old man." Through the blur, I heard it, the crunch of gravel outside, the door bursting open, Harris's boots pounding across the floor, and then Carl was gone, ripped off me. His arms twisted behind his back, Harris's voice barking orders, while Carl spit curses like venom. I slid to the floor, gasping, the taste of copper in my mouth. Harris knelt beside me, his hand on my shoulder. "It's over. He's done. You did good, sweetheart." But it wasn't over, not yet, because as they dragged Carl out in cuffs, his eyes met mine, dark, hateful, and he smiled, like he knew this nightmare wasn't finished. The days after Carl's arrest blurred into each other like smeared ink on wet paper. The whole town buzzed with half whispers and pitying stares. The poor widow whose husband killed her father. The sister who'd slept with the devil and still thought she was the victim. I couldn't walk into the grocery store without someone pausing mid-aisle, their eyes sliding away like they might catch my shame if they looked too long. Deputy Harris came by every other day with updates. The life insurance policy. Fraudulent. The bank account. Empty. Carl had already moved half the money offshore, probably planning to run the second the soil on Dad's grave settled. Megan's motel receipts. The wire recording. The bruises in the coroner's new report. They pieced together a story that made the DA's eyes light up like Christmas morning. Megan, poor, stupid Megan, ended up testifying against him. She had to. It was the only thing standing between her and an obstruction charge. She moved back in with Mom in a trailer park 2 counties over, claiming she needed to find herself again. Maybe she would. Maybe she wouldn't. Part of me wanted to forgive her. The other part of me hoped she'd wake up every day hearing Dad's head hit the stairs, feeling Carl's hands on her skin the same way I'd felt them wrapped around my throat. Carl pled not guilty, of course. Smirked through every court appearance, winked at the cameras like this was all some misunderstanding he'd charm his way out of. But he underestimated the one thing he couldn't control, me. The jury heard every word from that wire. They saw the bruises on my wrist. The shaky voice memo Megan left at the end, a confession, a betrayal, a smoking gun. Justice moves slow in this town, but it moves. And when the verdict came down, guilty on every count, I sat there, in the front row, my father's old wedding band in my pocket, like a secret promise. We did it, Dad. He won't hurt anyone again. The day they took Carl away for good. He turned to me in that orange jumpsuit, chains clinking at his wrists, eyes hollow with the realization that his charm was useless now. He said, "You think you won? You'll always be mine, you stupid bitch." But he was wrong. I'd already burned every trace of him from my life. Sold the house, cut my hair, changed my number. Some nights I still wake up gasping, feeling phantom, fingers on my neck, tasting old fear. But most nights, I sleep like the dead. And when I stand at Dad's grave on cold mornings, I tell him the same thing every time. Your girl's tougher than you thought. People ask if I'd do it all the same way if I knew how dark it would get. If I'd still bury the truth, one piece at a time, rip my own life open to drag the rot into the light. And the truth is, I don't know. Maybe I'd run. Maybe I'd hide. But I do know this. No one buries me but me. If you've ever felt that itch in your gut, the one that says something's wrong, something's rotten, listen to it. Pull up every nail in the floorboards. Shine light in every corner. They tell you to ignore because monsters don't live under your bed. Sometimes they sleep right beside you. And when they do, you better pray you're brave enough to stand over their grave when the dirt settles.